Good morning. It's Sunday morning. It's about 10:20, and I thought I would make some time today to kick off the course. I was not planning to do this video for a couple more days, but I just decided to get out in front of some things. Um, and where does one begin? Again, my name is Dr. Richard Bernardo, and I'm going to share the screen in a moment. I'll just talk for a few minutes to get my motor running. Plus, I'm distracted by my daughter trying to text me about grandma, and grandpa Wiles. At any rate, here we go. In fact, I'm going to put you on pause so I can take care of what I just saw on the message screen. Okay, back again. Grandchildren and children. Sometimes don't worry about whether grandpa or dad has other things to do. And I didn't want to overlook it for that matter as well, because you never know what it is they're trying to contact you about. He smiles. So let's get started one more time. Rich Bernardo, Bernato. And this is the beginning of a jillion videos I'll be sending out over the next 6 or 7 weeks in the sprint through this particular course. Now, before I forget, in fact, let me bring up the little agenda I did. I'm going to post this agenda in the content piece of Brightspace probably right after I finish this video. So you'll have that, although it's not really helpful, I don't think, except to follow along with my kind of script. So bear with me for a moment as I look for all my goodies on the screen. And here it is. Okie doke. And again, usually you're going to see much more complicated video agendas than this, but we'll go from there. First of all, you need to understand I use the word agenda as a kind of a euphemism, synonym for lesson plans. I make my own lesson plans just to help myself not wander afield, as I will do anyway, because that's what I do. And I'm what they call a random sequential learner. And I presume everybody I teach or work with are also random sequentials, when in fact I am in a very small minority of people, of how people think. So you're going to have to bear with me on that. I can't adjust how I learn and how I expect other people to learn with me. Short story is, let's do some housekeeping. All right, I'll always come up with goals. And there are the goals. I'll come back to them in a minute. I'll always list materials. This is not quite complete, but you'll see essentially what's on the syllabus, as a matter of fact, for the moment. And then topic concepts, excuse me. In this particular week, I've really identified 4 chapters. I don't usually ask for that many chapters to be read at a given time, but these are all kind of things I think you're already familiar with by way of your Dr. Cassiano class, whom I respect greatly and who thinks very highly of you, by the way. And so I'll go with that. So let's just get started. Okay, my name is Rich Bernardo, spelled with a T. The syllabus has my phone number. That would be 631-848-0316. You can call me if you need to, pretty much at any time up to about, I guess about 9 o'clock, when Mr. Sandman starts to reach out to me, but preferably no later than 5 or 6 o'clock, unless it's something I really need to know at that point. You can text me too. If you text me, just identify you, because I don't know your names all that well, except for one person whose name I recognize from Connecticut, and hello. And the other piece of it is that I forgot what I was saying. You can text me. Yeah, and just make sure that you identify the course that you're teaching. Right now, I'm only teaching this course for the summer, but sometimes all of a sudden I will be assigned another one, and then I begin to mix people into different groups, and it's not a good thing to do. So yes, you can call me. Be reasonable about when you call me, and yes, you can text me. Certainly, you can email me at the Stony Brook address. And tom-toms and strings, smoke signals. The smoke the last few days is not a joke, is it? But anyway, if you feel a need to reach out to me, go for it. and we'll go with that. Email, did I say email? Yes, I did. Emails certainly are good. So that's who I am that's how I choose to communicate with you. You can expect, again, many videos from me. Some of them are more important than others. In fact, I'll skip down to that because I just went there on this. You can expect at least 2 or 3 videos from me a week for the balance of the course. Understand, and you'll hear me say this quite a few times, and that would be that we're sprinting through a course that's really deserving of a full 30-hour, 15-week approach where we can marinate in things and bounce off each other and make it all come together. Unfortunately, or depending how you look at it, or fortunately for you, it is not. It's a 7-week class. And the great bulk of it, other than this Wednesday's class, the 14th, June 14th, will be asynchronous. So this will be the last time you will, you'll get videos like this all the way through. One video at minimum will be a what I call a content agenda. That's what this one is. And that'll be facts and information and sources and materials, things that you'll need to move through the material. And there's quite a bit of material, though. Some of it I think is repetitious because you have come through, I presume that most of you have come through Dr. Cassiano's class, although I sometimes have become surprised about that. I used to presume, for example, that everybody who was taking this course or any administration course wanted to be an administrator, but I've learned the hard way that isn't true. So I don't know or have any real idea how many of you really choose to be school leaders. That is to say, the leaders with stripes on your shoulders. So I don't really know that. I'm going to presume that you do want to be a leader until you tell me that you don't. That doesn't change my expectation of you for the course, but it does put a little different spin on how I want to approach things. But when in doubt, I'm going to teach this course to students whom I expect I'm interested in eventually, if not yesterday, or if not 10 years from now, interested in having the qualifications to be, at least on paper, to be a school leader and or a school district leader. In this case, is matter of course. So again, one video at least will be content. In this case, I'm kind of drilling it over to the chapters I assigned. That would be chapters 1, 2, 3, and 9. And you'll notice if you look at the syllabus, which is already up in Brightspace, if you look, and which I also send you by emails, if you look in the syllabus, you'll see that the chapters kind of begin to dance around. I don't like to go in sequence. I really like this book. I think it's a great book to use. I think it's well. I haven't seen a better one, notwithstanding what it costs. But the other way to look at it is too, it doesn't have to be the order in which I choose to teach, as long as I get it all taught. And that's how I'm looking at it. Now, to jump to a different lily pad and a different pond for a moment, one person, I think it was Carolyn, sent me an email and said, Dr. Bernardo, this book course was $200 or $300, depending on the edition that you wanted. Well, for heaven's sakes, don't spend $200 or $300 unless you really want that particular edition in your professional library. And I recommend that you have this book in your professional library. You can use this book pretty much throughout the Stony Brook classes. Certainly, if you choose to go on to a doctoral level program, this book will still apply. It's the book that people use. Now, I have I don't even know what edition I have. I'll tell you in a second. I have stay tuned, 11th edition. I had the most recent edition. And it's well done, and it's up to date. The other books obviously won't be up to date. But I'm also telling you, don't take out a mortgage to buy the book. So you buy the book that you can afford, or I'm not sure if this book is electronically available, try to get it online, which I kind of recommend for the most part. Most of the books I have nowadays are Kindle or iBooks for myself. At any rate, for argument's sake, if you got the 6th edition or the 5th edition, you're not going to see anything in there about DEI, about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's not going to be in there. It may tiptoe through it here and there. It's not going to get there. That's a very current topic. You're not going to get to critical race theory issues and the matters of leadership associated with that, because the theory is relatively new, but it's certainly not yesterday new. It's about 10 years old, as I recall. I do a lot of dissertations with students on that, and I don't know what to say. Those are going to be issues you're going to be dealing with as potential leaders, whether it be at the building level or the district level. Know that. Can't think of a job that you'll have that won't have some aspect of that. The fact that the older editions of the book don't deal with that means you have to keep your antenna up about that. That's the best answer I can give you. I'll be providing handouts and suggest readings and videos as you go along that will probably help you. But that means you have to look at them. You have to internalize them and work it through. Were this course synchronous, that is to say, we were meeting as a whole with a W every week, I would feel much more comfortable in assuring myself that those topics of DEI and CRT, among other things, how about artificial intelligence? That's a yesterday, or not even a yesterday, it's a last night kind of premise that's rearing its head. What do you do about those things if you don't have some kind of baseline to work with? So I will be the baseline as best I can. But that will also mean you'll get 1 or 2 videos about content in this course. I will usually, and I'm not doing it this time, I will usually accompany it with PowerPoint, not 1,000 slides, 6 to 7, 10. And basically, it'll just take this agenda and put it into a slide format. And I'm not sure how I'll approach that. I may just continue to go with this. You're also going to get, I'm saving this for the Wednesday synchronous class, when we're, in theory, he's with a capital T, and he smiled. In theory, you're all going to be looking at me for one day. Now, put up with that as a whole, and I will work from 4:30 to around 6:30, whenever, or probably sooner than that, but where I'm going to really drill into the syllabus. I'm not going to do that today. And I'm really going to spend a considerable amount of time on the assignments. Very important, I think, to understand what the assignments are. They're in the syllabus now. They're pretty explicit. The dates for expectation are there. But I want to get into them more specifically and more deeply in that class. And this is something I know that you'll hear from me about 3 million more times. By far and away the most important assignment in this course, and I'll explain why in the Wednesday meeting, is what we call the APA. I never know exactly what it stands for, but it's an assigned project something, or something project assignment. Everybody who's taking this class from here to Florida, out of Stony Brook, is doing that assignment. It's a pretty important assignment, and it's a complex one, at least that was how I look at it. And so I will tell you that in every class, every week, I will be giving you, be devoting a chunk of that other video to how to do the assignment. In that video too, I will put an expectation of something you should be doing for that assignment, so that you can give it to me, so I can give you feedback, so that you can adjust if you need to, or continue to move forward. If we wait until July 4th, after the class ends on the 17th, and I say, hey, this is due on the 17th, which is when it's due, you're going to break out in a rash. So what you need to do is do the other assignments. Then those are fairly simple to do. Do the other assignments, do the discussion questions. But you need to start the APA assignment as soon as this video is over. And so what you probably should do, we may have to put it up in a discussion question. I just mentioned it here in the hope that you'll be seeing this video before Wednesday, is that you will be doing the draft, the rough draft things I tell you to do all the way through with my guidance. And I promise you, if you do what I tell you to do on this, so be it. It'll be good. I was going to save this for next week, for this Wednesday as well. I will say this again, I know. This is a horrible time of the year in certain senses. I'm smiling because horrible. How could it be horrible? It's only 7 or 8 weeks, less than 7 weeks before the school year is finished. That isn't horrible. But everybody knows, having been a principal and an assistant superintendent and a few other things along the way, everyone knows that this time of the year is extremely difficult. And now this professor comes along and says, do this, do this, do this, do this. Can't be helped. These are the assignments for the course. But if you let these things kind of drag out on you, it's going to win and you're going to lose. That's why I can say that. Do the assignments when they're due. Get out in front of them if you want. Student in this class has permission to do some of them in advance of a blessed event. And I would think that if you can, go ahead and do it, because I'm very aware that you're not twiddling your thumbs between now and the end of the year. No matter if you're a first grade teacher, a 12th grade AP teacher, a coach, and a teacher, you name it. I know that you're very, very busy this year. So the quicker you move through this, the better off you're going to be. Okay? All right. So my expectations in terms of communication are clear enough. We have to communicate with each other. And that's why I'm doing these videos. Again, 1 to 2 videos, 2 to 3 videos a week. One will always be about content. One will always be about the assignments, especially the last assignment, the so-called APA assignment. And whatever else comes up, I think needs to be addressed. So we go from that to wherever we need to go to next, he smiled. And then you also will need to put the word exchange in there purposefully, because in the discussion questions, which will be 1 to 2 a week, I expect you to not only answer the question, but also respond to someone else's post. I used to say 2 to 3 people, but I think that I would love for you to do that, but I'm not going to put a gun between your eyes to do that, because again, the time elements and because of the time limits. Okay, doke. So 2 to 3 videos. One will be about 1 or 2 about content. One will be skills. One will be about the assignments. And the other goals for today, and I probably think of 10 others before I finish this video. By the way, in terms of the videos, I will be, not always, but this time I will, we're on Zoom. I will upload it from Zoom to YouTube and post a YouTube link. Every video I do will be recorded. Every video I do will be recorded. All right, again, because some of you will understand the reason for that, because it's largely, almost exclusively, an asynchronous class. All right, before I go to the other goals, I forgot to say who I was. I know one of you knows who I am, at least remembers me from days gone by way back when I had not the same amount of hair, Christine, but maybe the beard was a little darker. And that would be Dr. Richard Bernardo. I've been in the business of working with students since before any of you were born. I promise you that. I never say how old I am, but you can pretty much guess that I'm up there a bit. And that means I've been around and I'm experienced and I know a lot of stuff. And I'm pretty good at most of this stuff, although not always. I've had 35 years in Connecticut schools as a social studies teacher, best great times, as a administrator in just about every building in the district in different ways, in central office in any number of ways. 2 highlights, if you want to call, other than being a social studies teacher, are having been the principal at one of the elementary schools for 10 years. That was a good times. And the other piece of it was having been in central office in a number of places, leaving as the assistant superintendent for what our superintendent called the educational services, but I always think of as curriculum and instruction, although it was probably more than that. Also a fair amount of time in pupil services. I learned a lot there. And Dean, you name it, I've done it. I've chased kids who threw pizza across the floor, and I've chased kids who were arrested for murder. So and everything in between. I got my way around the building. As of this day and age, I'm kind of glad I'm not. Maybe because I'm too old to chase them anymore. So, love it. Have always loved it. They say if you go to work and think it's going to work, then it's not what you should be doing. And I've been blessed from way back to have a job. Sometimes I think they're paying me for this. Crazy. Why are they paying me for something that's really challenging and good and productive if you do all of the right things? And no one's perfect, but if you try to be perfect, that's, I guess, the best way to put it. 53 years is married, three daughters, 7 grandchildren. I was speaking about one of them before he smiled. Lots of friends and lots of good experiences. So I've written a couple of books, and the books are mentioned in the syllabus. They are not required. I was going to require them and decided I didn't want to spend your money. I do recommend the Futures-Based Learning Change Leadership book, if nothing else. Another book potentially coming out, and maybe actually 2 books coming out in probably late fall, maybe early winter. Looking forward to that, and to have done and continue to do a lot of consulting from all over Long Island, upstate a little bit, webinars, national webinars. There'll be more of those coming pretty soon, and absolutely devoted to helping leaders learn how to help make other leaders. That's empower other people to want their job in order to do the right thing by what kids need. Now, well, the kids in 1969 needed the same thing that the kids in 2023, 24, or afterwards. I tend to think is roughly the same, but not. And I don't need to go through all of that right now for you. We'll find ways to talk about that. And that's one of my regrets, that we don't have these open synchronous classes to exchange some of that energy among ourselves. That's a shame. It really is. But we'll do the best we can. All right. So now the rest of the goals are what I would call content goals. Forgive me for reading to you. I don't like to be read to, but I'm reading to you. 3 goals are my goals. Based on how I read the syllabus, I reserve the right to change things around as the weeks go on. But I don't know if that will happen. I hope that it doesn't in certain senses, but then again, it's good when it does, because that means I'm thinking about whether I'm making the class work for you to become to meet your needs as potential school leaders. So the first piece is kind of a broad shot piece. Consider superintendent's role in shaping school organizations to align with emerging futures. You're going to see that word emerging futures a lot. I won't belabor that today, but you're going to see that word a lot. And this is what it sounds like. At the end of the sentence, there's an emerging future. Simple as that. I'm the editor-in-chief of a journal of leadership and instruction for Scope. Three colleagues published an article this past month. I'm going to refer you to some of those articles now and then on their links about ChatGPT. Part of the journal article was, and they acknowledged it, was written by Mr. GPT, ChatGPT. I guess that's his first name. We read, the 3 of us read it, the 4 of us read it. They read it, and I read it with them when we did a podcast together 2 weeks ago. And they were already acknowledging that it's old. It's old hat. There's things have moved past that. And so the question becomes, and I'll talk about that in a minute, are our organizations, I don't like this word. It's not an education word. It's a business word, but it is probably will find its way into education when it's too late. And that would be are school organizations agile enough to anticipate the emerging futures? I don't think they are, as a matter of fact, unless you're a good school district leader. Principals do, but the school district leader is the one who has to set the tone for that. I'm jumping ahead of myself. Now, connected to that is another goal, and that would be recognizing and connecting the evolution of organizational leadership thinking. I'm not going to belabor that. I'd like to. I can go all nerdy on you and walk you from every theory from roughly 1900 to yesterday about org theory, and you'd have if I were lecturing notebooks full of the men and women who have contributed to the research about what organizational structure is about. Not necessarily educational organizational theory, but organizational theory. And I'll explain that in a moment. And the text does a decent job at that. I just don't see, not that it's not important, I just don't think we have the time to do that. So it's coming off the kidney machine. And if it survives, it survives. But we'll talk a bit about it, just to give you some kind of context, especially the most current thinking about educational organizational thinking. That we will hit pretty hard throughout the semester. And one of them being the superintendent's role or roles in recognizing situational leadership theories. By the way, you see these little things in question mark, use polling or whichever. Don't worry about that for now. I'm trying to connect these to the discussion questions. There is one discussion question, and there it is. And it is in the discussion section in Brightspace. I'd like to have you do that before next week. And here it is. What are the three major trends you perceive that superintendents must grapple with? Not just superintendents, but everyone within the next 20 years. Explain how you see the structure within which you exist is suited to solve them. Taking a break, I need a glass of water. I wonder if you noticed that I covered my mouth when I was coughing, even though none of us are in the same room. That's a piece of Zoom recording and instruction and conversations that people probably don't recognize, but those are the silly things I notice in my travels. All right, I'm going to share the screen again. All right, so that's what the discussion question is. And don't forget, you need to. I'm going to model that for you in a moment. But essentially, what you need to do is obviously exchange points of view. My money is that, especially after I model it, you'll be thinking of some of the same things I've already brought up for you to think about. And so that's chapter 1 goals. We'll come back to that in a minute. Chapter 2 has to do with schools' true and deepest purpose. I have much to say about that. Don't be tricked by just the three little hyphens there. I have much to say about that. Chapter 3 is more nitty-gritty content. When you want to scan that text chapter, I already did say that some of the early chapters I don't think will be any different from everybody else's newer books. Might be a couple of changes, but essentially, well, pretty much identical as I recall. Chapter 9 is really where I personally get interested in, where I can lead you. And that would be about reform, change. If you're not in this course, you're in this course. If you're not in this course, even if you don't intend to be an administrator, with an interest in what people can do to change what we do, to improve it, heavens to Betsy. That means you're here for the course credit. I get that. But even if you're here just for the course credit, somewhere in the crevices of your brain, that's going to stick. How do you make things better? Pat Riley, who was, I guess, the heat of bad shape in terms of the NBA Finals as of this video. Pat Riley, 8th place seed in the basketball tournament, is in the finals against Denver. And his saying, this goes back to the times when he was coaching the Lakers, before some of you were born, which was to say, when you stop trying to get better, you stop being good. I'm going to stick my foot in my mouth for a moment and say that on Long Island, the sense of urgency to make us to continue to try to get better is dull, is not particularly an emphasis. I think you understand why. I was looking at U.S. News and World Report a couple of days ago. The 30 best, it was high schools in the country. Might have been more than 30. But whatever, doesn't matter. At least 4 of them were Long Island schools. Think about that. All of Long Island is 122 miles long. 4 high schools in probably about an 80-mile span. About 8 or 9 million people. I don't even think that's that. Probably I'll take that back. Probably about 4 million people total between the Nassau and Suffolk counties. Assuming that you teach or lead or work here, you may, if you work in the metropolitan area, if you're a New York City teacher, there was 4 or 5 New York City schools that were in that list as well, which I was impressed by. And there's quite a few in Illinois, and that was the rest of them were kind of spread around. I guess California might have been the 3rd highest. And even the schools that aren't necessarily in that top list, heavens to Betsy, you got some very good schools here, which means you got very good kids. Don't forget that. You smile. Do you have to work really hard to get an AP scholar to take an AP class? I guess. I suppose. But it's a different bull of wax when you think about other places where people have to teach or where they have to lead. I was teaching a course last fall where there was a principal from Brooklyn. By the way, Brooklyn schools are not nearly as bad as sometimes stereotypically people tend to think. A woman was principal, I'm not sure, I think it was near Flatbush. Got a phone call from the superintendent on a Monday morning and said, "Oh, by the way, 17 kids are coming into your building today." And what were they? They were the immigration move. That children had been bused up from someplace, and now they were our problem. We'll put it that way. I don't want to call it that as such, but our challenge is a better word to make it all work. And how was the principal supposed to respond to that straight away? One of the reasons why she was able to, I think, is because she had a good system in place, which isn't to say they didn't have problems. So again, if you stop trying to get better, you stop being good. So even if you think you're in school number 1 in the world or in the country, which I think is Jericho High School, if you're in that school, well, heaven bless you. But one of the reasons why that's one of the top schools in the country, and with no knock, I happen to know a lot of people over there, including the superintendent, who's a star, is that they continue to try to keep being better. They don't give up. They're still looking for ways to improve what they do to meet the demands of their kids' need and the demands of a 21st emerging society, 21st century emerging society. So let's just move through this for a few minutes. I want you to watch this video. I'm not going to play it here. I'll be posting this document up so you can do this. I want you to watch this video. I think it's 10 minutes long. It's a TED Talk. And it's really about what an organization is all about. Because it's the organization, stupid. I'm not calling you stupid, it's just a phrase. I can't put a square peg in a round hole because it's structured differently. Neither can I put a round peg in a square hole because it's structured differently. Rhetorical question. What's the structure of your school? As a superintendent, you've got to be acutely aware of that. It's one of the reasons why you have that assignment to interview the superintendent, A, and the other assignment being give yourselves and analyze the organizational chart. I'll talk more about that in the next video, as well as probably on Wednesday. Tells you more than you can volumes if you don't know what to look for. Okay. So yeah, it's the organization stupid. What does the organization look like from the 50,000-foot view? Now, to go along with that analogy, and I use this analogy a lot, it's a little murky, so stay with me. I'm not even sure they do it anymore. I haven't been to a wedding in a long time. Is that they used to have weddings where people, and they probably still have some like this, where they have these champagne fountains. And champagne, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, there would be sort of a big tub filled with champagne. I guess there was a pump in it, and they'd pump the champagne up to the top of the champagne, a very pyramid at the top. My hand's going over the camera, over the top of the very single glass at the top of the pyramid. And so the champagne would go into the top of the pyramid and then cascade down to 2. And then when they filled up, cascade down to 4 and 8, and I guess, and down until they ran out of room. And so this is the obvious point. It's top-down drip. Here's the other word. It's hierarchical. Now, who sits on top of the pyramid? The superintendent. There's no getting around the fact that virtually all of our districts, anyway you look, are hierarchical. It's how we think. It's our structure. It's our form. Now, it's a hard question. You can't answer the question well, and I'm not going to probably present it as well as I would like to present it. You can't answer the question well. At the same time, neither can I, and that would be, what does that say about who we are to always think that way? I don't really know. Do we like to be told what to do? Or there are some people who are just naturally more smart, more powerful than us, that forces us to respond to that on that basis? Maybe. Is this simpler? Yes, no question. The captain of the Titanic didn't call a meeting and do a kumbaya with everyone to decide whether they should put the lifeboats over the side. That was a command decision. Do superintendents make command decisions? Absolutely. Are superintendents held accountable for decisions for the whole organization? Absolutely. And the but at the end of my sentence is, does it have to be that way? Or to modify that point a little bit, does it have to be that way all the time? I was in a high school a couple of years ago doing a site visit for an administrative intern, and it was summer, and the principal was making the school schedule. Few people really realize how valuable the school schedule, how powerful the school schedule is, even in an elementary school, to make all the ships run on time, and how it reflects the culture and values of the school. Totally. So I went to meet with the man, and he was obviously a bright guy and very concerned about making the schedule right. So I said something like this. I said, well, my intern, Miss Smith, would love to get some intern time with you to help you work with the schedule. And he wasn't rude, but he certainly wasn't really very polite about it. He says, only I make the schedule. And I said to myself, yes, sir. And I went back to my intern. And I said, it's not going to happen. Now, I've seen the other side of the coin now too, where I've seen buildings try to do a collective schedule construction, and that was often chaos. Now, the reason for that is they didn't know how to make a schedule. If they knew how to make a schedule, they could have made a better schedule than probably most administrators. There's a balance and perspective here. See that word perspective to consider. Now, I'll go back to that point before, as I mentioned earlier. Is it about form and function? Now, this video is about 2 minutes long. I'm only going to show you like 5 seconds of it because I couldn't find a good video about the premise. So I'm going to I'm almost going to get this video on and shut it down. Stay with me.
Do you know the US solar company's nasty little secret?
Yes.
It turns out if you live in New York, they have to give you solar panels for absolutely no.
Ever heard the phrase form fits function? It's when the shape of something is designed for the job it's supposed to do.
That's it. Stopping it. Okay. Just wanted you to just wanted you to hear those words and see the, you want to read, see the rest of this, the rest of that, that's up to you. But I just wanted you to hear that phraseology as we go along. Okie doke. So the next question is, as I said earlier, for example, critical race theory, diversity, equity, inclusion, unfortunately, always become buzzwords. They mean things to different people. A guy was yelling at me the other day about woke. I'm sick of this blankety blank woke. And I didn't know what to say because I'm not sure I know what woke is. Confuses me sometimes. I know that we're morally obligated to be sensitive to different kinds of people's needs. This person clearly was taking it and maybe there are some excesses to that. I don't know. But to that need to move to alleviate that need. But then again, I'm not acknowledging, I'm just saying maybe. But for some reason, this man was incensed. And I hope the governor of Florida is running for the presidency, basically saying, I'm going to destroy woke. Wow. Is that the case? Is that because of structure? Did the structure create this problem? The structure of how we think and decide? Rhetorical question, put it under your pillow tonight, does the fact that we live in a hierarchical culture, decision structure for the most part, does that suggest that we can't break out of that we can't go, I use the word in a different way, I'm going to call it laterally, sideways, leveled? Would a superintendent be better served were she to be able to create a structure where all the people in the organization could contribute to the decision where it's appropriate? The iceberg's coming, again, command decision. But for the most part, are we living by crisis decision making when we don't have to? So all these superintendents, he shouted, all around the world, all around the country, all around Long Island, failed to see the pandemic coming. Wow. Read my lips. They failed to see it. They failed to have the structures in place for people to begin to alleviate those issues and move towards them. And to use a phrase, I don't know where I got it from, it's not mine. They were building the plane while it was flying. Happily, because other people stepped up and began to contribute to how they were going to respond to this crisis instructionally, and certainly by way of health issues as well. We blew it. We didn't prepare. Now, don't tell me that we couldn't see that pandemic coming. Baloney. We knew that there always was a probability that some kind of crisis would befall us, other than a snowstorm, where we would have to stop schooling. Just makes sense. Were we prepared for it? Was our technology infrastructure ready for it in many districts? No. Doesn't mean we didn't rally up and take care of it, but it was a we, it wasn't an I. Okay. So that goes back to the other analogy. I talked about the cascading wine glass, champagne wine glass metaphor. The other one is it a spider web? Well, how close is it to being a spider web? Or a spider web, a spider builds a web in order to catch insects. Spider creates the web, it's some kind of sticky substance. Then the spider goes off up into a corner where she can't be seen. And then when a mosquito or fly is flying around, it gets caught in the web and it's stuck there. Now the vibration of the web sends the signal to the spider to go down and grab that fly and gobble it up. The vibration of the system communicated out, which is the most ideal structure. Or maybe another way to put it is, when is one structure more ideal than another? As a superintendent, know how to play the keys to situationally move towards that. How do you perceive that when you're beginning to interview your superintendents? Oh, by the way, not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a superintendent, it can be any district person. Hopefully the superintendent, although everybody's really busy at this time of the year. We'll talk about that more on Wednesday. And that comes down to the next question, which is, I'll come back to this more specifically, maybe another video, or maybe the week after this. This is one of those professor questions that I hated being asked when I was sitting on your side of the screen, but here it comes anyway. To what extent does everyone understand your purpose? Their purpose, their school's purpose. Here it comes, right? Terrible question, here it comes. What is the purpose of schooling? There's at least 10 different reasons, 10 different purposes. Back in Pilgrim days, the purpose of schooling was to teach the children to know how to read and write the Bible. That was it. There are some people who would argue the only purpose for schooling is to teach children and students how to think critically. There are some people who say, as Jefferson, I think, said, there are people who say that the purpose of schooling is to create good citizens, whatever that means. In your mind, first of all, what do you think is your prime purpose as an educator? Then, here's the million-dollar question. To what extent does what you think about school's purpose is compared to what you think your colleagues think? A lot of think words there. Are they matched up? Are they in the same place? Do they really agree? Our experience is that they don't. Our experience is that they line up 10 teachers or 10 principals or 10 citizens in the same school district, and you're going to get about 10 different answers. Now, here comes the problem, and this is Bernardo just holding forth, as you often do in these videos, and that is, so what do schools do? They struggle to meet everybody's purpose, and usually meet nobody's. Enough said. I'm going to skip theory of practice and theory of action. I'm just going to mention these other premises, and let me come back to this in a later video this week. I just wanted to wet your whistles. Chapter 3 has some important points. Yeah, I'm going to stop here and highlight this because I don't want to lose it. Remind myself to come back to this. And so what we have is an introductory video just to get you going. I urge you, if you haven't already, to look over the syllabus carefully and look over the assignments carefully. Get a head start on a couple of them. You could do that easily for this 3. You could easily do ahead of time. One would be to attend a board meeting. Another one would be to get the school's organizational chart. And the third one would be to set up an interview with a district administrator. Those you could do yet tomorrow. As soon as you see this video, you can set those up. The APA, that's going to take 7 weeks and then some. But I'll talk more about all of these things come Wednesday. So one last request would be, if you, a couple of you have done it, if you could just send me a paragraph saying, my name is John Smith, and I intend to take over, become the Commissioner of Education in 2034. And this is what I believe, and this is why I'm here. And this is what I want to know about. That helps me shape things as we move along. Remember, form fits function, or function fits form. Forgot that format. I will confuse you sometimes. I've been known to do that. Don't be afraid to ask questions and look for clarification. If I think your question has value for everyone else to hear, I will get it out to everybody to say. And with that, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop the recording, put it up on YouTube in about 20 minutes.